Hi, I'm Alicia Butler-Pierre, producer and host of the Business Infrastructure Podcast, the show where we share practical tips, tools, and tactics to scale your fast-growing small business with less pain. The video you're about to watch is a snippet of my interview with Marguerite Orane. Be sure to subscribe so that you can continue to receive more resources for scaling without the chaos. Let's get to the video.
This episode is brought to you by Equilibria Incorporated, the company behind this podcast, where we design scale-ready business infrastructure for fast-growing small businesses.
In February of 2012, I was walking through the Miami airport and I saw the cover, the latest issue of the Harvard Business Review, had a smiley face on the cover, which means I had to stop because I love smiley faces. And the cover was the value of happiness, how employee well-being drives profits.
When I looked up the word happiness in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it defined it as a state of well-being and contentment, joy. It made sense that Marguerite Orane, whose voice you just heard, stopped to take a closer look at that magazine with the big smiley face on it. She's a joy specialist. This is the Business Infrastructure Podcast, the show where we offer strategies, tactics, and resources to cure back office blues and to keep your business operating as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. I'm Alicia Butler-Pierre, and as you've probably guessed, this episode is rooted in joy. You see, happiness and joy are inextricably linked, but don't be fooled. This won't be a hocus-pocus pie-in-the-sky type episode. The subtitle of that Harvard Business Review magazine was How Employee Well-Being Drives Profits. That's the angle we'll be using. Joy is defined as the emotion evoked by well-being, success, or good fortune, or by the prospect of possessing what one desires. And Marguerite Orane is the personification of it. As the CEO of Free and Laughing Incorporated, she imbues joy in everything she does, including her executive coaching work. In fact, as you'll discover, joy is a critical factor for building thriving teams that produce results without sacrificing their well-being in the process. This is episode 218, Ease, Grace, Joy, how Marguerite Orane coaches executive leaders for sustainable growth.
My name is Marguerite Orane, and I'm from Jamaica. I grew up in a family business. My parents had a business, mommy and daddy. They started it before I was born, and actually when I was born, they were going through a very, very tough time in the business. And they thought they were going to go bankrupt. And I remember my mom telling me this story, and I'll probably cry because I cry every time I remember this. She said, I was such a happy baby. And she would be changing me and taking care of me. And she would just be saying to herself, they can take everything away from us, but they can't take you away. And see, I'm tearing up now. And so when people say, well, Marguerite, how did you become this joyful? I kind of say, well, it looks like I was born that way. But you know what, Alicia? Everybody, I think, is born that way.
And she's right. We're all born with joy, but some of us seem to lose it as we grow up. But not Marguerite. She's innately joyful. She grew up alongside her family's business, working there during the summer holidays and after school. Eventually, she attended the University of the West Indies in Trinidad. She graduated in the late 70s with a degree in management studies, optimistic about the future.
I came back to Jamaica and started to work as a sort of a clerical person, just doing bank reconciliations. Very awful, boring manual job. And about 6 months into it, my brother, who's 8 years older than me, and he said, look, I've been accepted to do my MBA at Harvard Business School and I'm going. And we need somebody to run the family business. He had done an amazing job of turning it around and scaling it, actually.
Marguerite's brother, who up to the time of this revelation oversaw running the business. He told her she was the best person to succeed him as leader of their family-owned business. These were big shoes to fill.
Those listeners who have big brothers probably know you don't tell your big brother no. So I say, oh, sure. I was 23. I had zero management experience. I was 5 feet tall. I still am. I had and still have a baby face. I probably looked 16. And the business at the time employed 70 men.
And just like that, an eager and ambitious Marguerite took over as a leader at her family's manufacturing business. It was an experience that would change everything.
We made wooden doors. And so that was literally my baptism by fire into the world of leadership and management and getting things done and working through things and solving problems.
How long did you work in that capacity, Marguerite?
I was there for about 4 years, and we decided as a family to sell the business because it's related to the construction industry, which is very cyclical. And we realized that we were at the peak of a construction cycle, and we're doing very well. Mommy and Daddy were 60 years old. Everything they had was tied up in the business, so they had no pension other than the business, because even their family home was mortgaged to the business. And so we decided to sell. And that was precipitated also by my own decision to go to Harvard Business School to do my MBA.
The year was 1981, and Marguerite headed north to Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the northeastern part of the U.S., to be exact. Up to this point, she was following in her big brother's footsteps. But as she would soon discover, going to Harvard would afford her more than just an Ivy League education.
The experience in the family business was traumatic. I probably had post-traumatic stress disorder or something. A lot about family businesses are fraught with all sorts of family issues. I had a very bad relationship with my father. When I took over running the business, I was the managing director of the firm, which meant that I was my father's boss. And that did not work so well. And it was very, very difficult to run the business, to have the responsibility of this business, to have the responsibility of the family's financial well-being. And it was also a very difficult time in Jamaica. It was the late 1970s, and there was a lot of civil strife. I would call it almost a civil war. And it was just very difficult. There was a lot of stress and negative energy, and the workers would come to work having had to stay up all night keeping watch in case gunmen came. It was just really toxic. And so when we sold the business and I went off to Harvard Business School, I was free.
Free to think and free to be. Now that she was over 1,000 miles away from home, she had time to reflect, ponder, press the reset button. Marguerite didn't know it at the time, but taking classes at Harvard would also become her therapy as well.
I hope you enjoyed watching this video. You can catch the full interview by going to businessinfrastructure.tv or by clicking the link below in the description box. Don't forget to subscribe so that you'll know exactly when the next episode drops. See you in the next video.
Join us next week for another episode of Business Infrastructure with Alicia Butler-Pierre.